we talked with this. He wasn't supposed to use full slides. Kyle did with one, but it was too late. He was already here, not realizing. The imaginative communication, you can use any type of video media, but this was
definitely. Okay.
It's too late, so you do what you have to.
We got this. All right. I did a survey prior to this sermon of 95 religious people on Facebook, okay? Majority of the people from this survey are from Valley Forge. Some of them were from my high school, and some are from differing faiths. 48% of these 95 people stated that they were known solely by their faith, whereas the remainder stated they were known by likes, sports, personality, etc. We'll get more into that later. Today we're going to be dealing with a topic, huge topic in today's culture. We're going to be talking about idolatry. As Christians, many of us know the significance of idolatry. However, let me bring out some definitions for those who might not be as familiar with the topic. Merriam-Webster defines idolatry as the worship of a physical object as a god, immoderate attachment, or devotion to something. Oxford English defines it as the worship of idols or images made with hands. More generally, the paying or offering of divine honors to any created object. The idea brought out is idolatry is when an individual or group puts something or someone at the focus of their life. They put this thing even before God. There are many examples, as I said, with idolatry today. Through entertainment, movies, music, theater, video games, social activities such as shopping, sports, eating. Environment is a prime example of idolatry. People worshiping the creation and not the creator. Social networking, internet, cell phone, Facebook, Twitter, MySpace, all this. Going back to the survey, those things aren't bad in themselves. But in excess can consume our lives and become a priority even more before God. Let's see some examples of idolatry today. You'll know all three of these things. They're a little funny. Twilight. This is a real quote from a Twilight fan. Twilight fans obsessed. They're crazed, devoted fans to this. This is a quote from one, right? I am irrevocably in love with it. Ever since I read it, I saw the world differently. I became different. I wanted every part of my life to have something to do with it. I watched the movie 3 times in theaters, read Twilight 6 times, New Moon, Eclipse, and Breaking Dawn twice. I have 3 Twilight shirts, Alice's choker, Rosalie's necklace, a Twilight bag, Team Edward pin, and many more. I know that having the most Twilight stuff doesn't mean that you are the biggest fan. I think that if inside your heart you always remember it, you are the biggest Twilight fan. Another great example, Bieber Fever. This is a quote from somebody. He's incredibly talented, that's one thing. He can play 5 different instruments and sing amazingly. Even though he sounds kind of high-pitched in his songs, his voice is definitely getting deeper, and he actually sings in a lower key live. He's also gorgeous. His hair, eyes, smile, yeah. His personality is also quite charming. He's funny, incredibly nice. Moving down, I'm definitely the biggest fan I know. I bought his first album 8 times and donated 7 of them to charity. I pre-ordered his second album and bought it again on iTunes. I know every word to every song, and I sing them every day, it seems. At the bottom, I'm a proud believer. One doesn't have to just look at the media, though, to see this blatant idolatry. Looking at the church, we see an example of the Virgin Mary. The broadest example of idolatry in the church today. 23% of Christians in this nation are Catholic. The Catholic Church literally attributes some astounding characteristics and abilities to her, such as interceding for us, atoning for us, and delivering our souls from damnation. The Catholic Church puts Mary on this enormous pedestal, manipulating scriptures to magnify her to be someone that she was not. Before we move on, 3 questions to think about. Outside of Catholicism, can idolatry be found in our churches today? Without condoning anyone, can seeker-friendly churches promoting the use of things such as Facebook or Twitter in church literally promote or be an encouragement to idolatry today? Do we struggle ourselves with keeping our priorities in the correct order? Now, one of the best biblical examples of a leader dealing with idolatry firsthand is Moses. Moses, as a leader, had many many issues with his people falling away from the one true God and into idolatry. One can see examples throughout Exodus, Leviticus, and Numbers. This is not only them worshiping another god, but they're breaking the commandments. God's number one commandment, you shall not have other gods before me, found in Exodus 23. I've made a series of charts to bring this information to the forefront. And in this chart here, we see the examples of the three things: idolatry and idols, other gods, and being told to demolish idols in those three books. It's not all comprehensive, but as you can see, it's a lot more concentrated in Exodus, it's brought up in Leviticus, and there's one instance in Numbers. These three books are part of the Pentateuch. Pentateuch is made up of the first 5 books of the Bible. Genesis is the introduction, with Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and then this leads into Deuteronomy. Now, Deuteronomy is an important book because Deuteronomy is Moses' farewell. He's leaving. He's saying goodbye, and he's not going to be able to enter the promised land with the people. And idolatry up to Deuteronomy, when we hit Deuteronomy, it's a lot more concentrated. It's dealt with a lot more. Moses makes highlighting idolatry much more important. Again, idolatry is brought out in those 3 books, but in a lot more detail in Deuteronomy. He brings it out in such detail as a reminder to the Israelites as they prepare for entering the promised land without him, where they came from and where they're going. He's not going to be able to go with them into the promised land. And so he's reminding them of their past and how they don't have to be held by that. Thomas Mann, a biblical scholar of the book of Deuteronomy, he wrote, the phrase "no other gods," this anti-idolatry, is the heart of Deuteronomic theology. Looking at Deuteronomy 4:15-24, Moses brings out that the Israelites had heard God's voice and wanted to put a physical form to it in worship. Moses stresses to the people not to look at the creation, as I previously mentioned, to look at the Creator. Not to look at, the list goes man, woman, animals, birds, fish, the sky, the sun, the moon, the stars. Don't look at anything that has been created, but to look to God, who created all that and each and every one of us. Moses himself, as I said, was not permitted to enter the promised land because of the past, because of the sin. The people, for one reason, Moses, because if you remember, he strikes the rock, and so, but this new generation of people don't have to be held by that. They don't have to be held by their past. The key word in this passage, this key word in this book, is covenant. Moses brings this out at the end of this passage. God's covenant, which he made with the people. He promises to protect them and give them the promised land as long as they do not create and follow other gods. The passage reads, "Be careful not to forget the covenant of the Lord your God that he made with you. Do not make for yourself an idol in the form of anything the Lord your God has forbidden." As I said before, the key word in the book, covenant. Moses brings it out, as you can see here, 25 times in Deuteronomy. God has made a covenant with his people and will fulfill it as his people choose to follow him and follow him alone. Just because your father, your mother, your grandfather, your grandmother fell into sin doesn't mean that you as an individual are held by their sin. You may have struggles in your life of any kind, not just through idolatry, due to how you were brought up, what you came from. Whatever the reason, God is a God of second chances. Look at the Israelites and how many times they heard the word of the Lord and still disobeyed. Yet God continued to hold his covenant with them if they would simply repent and turn from their sinful ways. What is our priority? Our God is our ultimate concern. Whenever that ultimate concern is something or someone other than the Lord, the God of Israel, then we too have fallen short of the Deuteronomist warning. No other gods. It's another quote by Thomas Mann. God is righteous. He demands faithfulness from his people. Look at a married couple. In a married relationship, one expects faithfulness and exclusive love and loyalty from his or her partner. They don't want their spouse to go out and be doing all sorts of things and then come back and give them whatever is left of themselves. No, not at all. God is the same way. He demands the best from us. And it's our duty as Christians to give him just that. You may say to me, how can I get my priorities back in order? I've been focusing solely on that huge house or that new car, not on God. And it's simple. First and foremost, repent. Ask God for forgiveness, for allowing yourself to be swayed from his perfect will for your life. Make it a point to continue making your prayer life your priority. Worship God and God alone, and read his word. Yahweh is not like anything else. He cannot be put in a box. And yet, our God is a God of forgiveness. All we need to do is ask, and we will receive his mercy and his healing touch.